Have you ever looked around and wondered, how did I get here? Whether it's going on automatic pilot when you're driving to work, whether it's waking up and looking next to someone and going, oh my gosh, I've been in this relationship for 3 months, what have I been doing? We can really tend to block out the bad in our lives, even be it like a stomach ache that we've had for 3 months and we finally wake up and are like, I should probably go to the doctor about this. And what's really interesting is that the body adapts to that. The body will very easily go into survival mode or protect mode to keep you safe, to keep you functioning. And that's why some people, even though their appendix is about to burst, they can go for weeks and weeks in that pain before going to the hospital. What I want to talk about today is how so many of us women have lived in protect mode for so long that we don't even realize that we're doing it. And the beautiful thing is, in this day and age, we have more opportunity, more ability to be visual than we've ever had before. Not only because of the internet, and we can all put up a video and that's great, but people are more receptive now to what we have to say. So the question is really, what is holding us back? What's keeping us in that fear of not wanting to be visual? Of being too afraid to go on camera, being too afraid to step up in front of other people and present who we are. And I believe that it all boils down to one phrase that we've believed our entire lives, and that is, I'm not enough. We all at one point or another, whether it was in elementary school, middle school, high school, college, have had someone else tell us that we are not enough. And they may not have done it directly, but through bullying, through a really bad sexual experience, through a coworker or a boss, it's never been enough. And so we have thought, I'm not enough. And for some reason, even though that inner voice, that inner truth, that inner self knows what it wants to do, knows what its voice is, knows what it wants to accomplish, for some reason, that stranger, that friend, that coworker, that relative, that one sentence that they said is the one sentence that we believe. And that affects everything for our future. And that's usually why dis-ease starts to happen in our bodies. And what I want to talk to you about today is how we need to have a different relationship with our body. We've all heard of being more connected to it. We've all heard of, meditating, yoga, eating right, all of those things that are absolutely correct, but how do we truly step out of protect mode and into growth? Because in protect mode, when we're believing those traumas, we're believing those lies, we're believing that we're a victim, nothing really can change, because all our subconscious, which is running our bodies, can allow us to do is recreate more of the past. And if we want to step out as women, as ladypreneurs, in our visibility, we really have to figure out how can we truly, outside of just healing our bodies, outside of having the right mindset, but putting it all together with our emotions and our spirit, truly step into growth so that we can create a different and a better future. So let's talk about our organs. I've studied something very interesting called Rafaology, and it's an indigenous plant medicine that studies how light affects plants to bring healing to our bodies. And the beautiful thing about that is that our body runs off of light, very similar to a plant. So just like a plant needs sunlight to be able to absorb the nutrients that it needs, our body is the same way. And the way that we do that is through our hormone-producing glands. We have 7 of them. And if our body doesn't get this light to feed these hormone-producing glands, dis-ease spreads throughout the body because the body can't keep its equilibrium. It can't boost the organs to perform the functions they need to function. And if on top of that, we're constantly stressed, then our body turns very acidic. And that's where bacteria, virus, fungus, and parasites can grow. So let's start with the first hormone-producing gland, and that's the pituitary gland, right in the center of our brain. That's the master hormone producer. We've all heard about it. It helps create hormones throughout our body. But then we move to the pineal gland right here about 2 inches back from where my finger is. And the pineal gland is really interesting because not only is it a master immune gland, but it is all about how we see our lives, how we see our reality. And what I'm going to try to show you is that there is a relationship between our organs and our actual true north, our true self. And if we're not operating out of this, the organs are going to suffer and not perform in their highest function. So if we're feeling depressed, that actually comes from an inability to see ourselves in the future. So the pineal gland cannot function at its optimum level because not only are we stuck behind our computer screens and not getting enough sunlight to feed that pineal, but since we're unable to see ourselves in the future, it has nowhere to go. And there's a beautiful relationship between our pineal gland and the neurons in our brain that help make those new connections. And you've probably heard of Joe Dispenza. He's an absolute genius and scientist in this area that really helps you perfect your mindset and take control over that subconscious computer brain. But the main thing I want you to get today is that our pineal is all about our focus and where we're headed. So if that is dysfunctional, then you can only imagine the havoc that it wreaks throughout the body. So then we move on to our thyroid gland, which is all about, yes, it manufactures T cells. Yes, it regulates our metabolism. But what does it do energetically? And it represents our self-identity. And almost every woman that I've come across struggles with their self-identity and therefore struggles with their thyroid gland. And when you actually find your true voice, which you can only do if you stop believing all these other voices that say that you're not enough, this suffers. So when you aren't able to have your true identity, when you aren't able to find your true voice, not only does it impact your future and your ability to step out into the person that you're able to be, but it affects this organ. It can't do its job. So you can only imagine if we've started to believe these lies, if we've been through these traumas, we've started to coat ourselves in this amber, this liquid amber. And the thicker and thicker this amber gets with the validation of the negative voices. So if the base root is I'm not enough, that maybe happened as a child because a parent left the home, then every time you get bullied at school, every time you turn in an assignment at work and you don't get a lot of praise, every time you're in a bad relationship, the amber coats and coats and coats. And sometimes it'll take 10 years, sometimes it'll take 20 or 30, but it will always crystallize and harden and lock you into this protect mode. And you can do all the meditations in the world, all the yoga, all the clean eating, but if you don't start breaking down that amber, your life can never truly change. It will just recreate more of the past because of the belief in that one lie. And I believe that every woman in the world has been suppressed with that one lie, that we've all believed at some point or another that we are not enough. But I think that now we're in an interesting day and age because we're all starting to wake up. And this brings me back to my very first question of how did I get here? And if you're able to step back from yourself and go, I've been living while asleep. What have I been doing? What voices have I been hearing? And are those voices my own? Or are they a lie that I've believed? What was my initial trauma? So for me, I was born blue. I was born with hyaline membrane disease, the inability to breathe out. In hospitals nowadays, they can fix that pretty quickly, but for me, that was back in 1985, and it took them about 2.5 weeks in intensive care to do that. So talk about being born into an environment of needing to protect because I literally couldn't breathe. And that did a big disservice for me because that is all, when we're babies, the subconscious mind. So it goes into the reptilian brain, it goes into fight or flight. And so when I started getting older and dealing with bullying, then that became a huge vice in my life because I was believing all those lies since I was born. So if you can just think, what lie have I been believing? That's the first step. That's the first way to unlock you from that pattern, to start chipping away at this anger and this amber that's been over your body and causing this dysfunction. I'm not going to go over all the hormone producing glands today because I want to save a little bit on time, but I am going to talk about the kidneys. And we all know that kidneys help flush the water from our systems. We all know that they can produce cortisol and adrenaline and testosterone, but as women, it's really important that our hormones are in balance. And we've probably heard of women that are male dominant or exhibit tendencies, but I want to dig into that a little bit further. So if we're in protect, if we're believing this one lie, then what happens is that the kidneys are constantly signaled to produce. And so they produce adrenaline and cortisol and testosterone because they believe that we are truly in a life or death situation. And if you haven't retrained your brain or your body, it will operate infinitely in this system. But energetically, the kidneys represent our relationships. So if you can start putting together the fact that we're in this protect and defend, and look at this organ that shows us if our relationships are in balance, you can imagine the disaster that happens if we're constantly believing this lie that we're not enough, if we're constantly thinking that nothing we ever do is enough, that we should always be on guard, that we create these patterns of disappointment and failure and, yeah, I'm dating this guy, but I'm sure he's gonna be like all the rest. The kidneys are not only in stress because of these thoughts, but they're not able to create healthy, in-balance relationships, so they are constantly stressed. I know that that's at least what I did, and that's how I developed chronic migraines for 15 years and horrible cystic acne because my testosterone was so ridiculously high. The only thing my body could think to do was put the excess stuff in my skin. So we can see this amazing relationship that we have between our mind, body, and spirit. But what's so important for us to be able to step out in visibility is to bring all of these into consideration and into alignment so we can heal, get rid of that old amber, and step into that new future. And I think the best way to stop listening to that one voice that I'm never enough is to get rid of expectation. You might have heard a little bit about expectation, and especially at work, you probably get a little sheet once you're hired that says, I expect you to blah, blah, blah. The problem with expectation isn't the actual word, it's the people that are behind the word. And we get expectations from our parents, from our relationships, be it romantic or friendships, and from our jobs. And we learn to put these on ourselves. And the problem is, we've all heard hurt people. But with expectation, what's so dangerous is that they can never be fulfilled because you can never fill someone else's expectation. Because you have to look at it on a global scale in terms of this person that's giving me this expectation. Have they ever had their life valued by another person? And what I mean by that is, are they themselves a fully functional, in balance, understanding human being? And usually the answer is no, because they themselves have gone through trauma, have gone through pain, and have believed that same sentence that you've believed, that they are never enough. So when they don't have that need filled, there's no possible way that when they're giving you an expectation, you could ever fill it. It's literally impossible. So here we are trying to fill expectation, and we've learned about expectation, so now we're putting it on ourselves, which looks like, well, I've done this report, but it's still not enough. I need to do more. It needs to be perfect. Okay, I need to show up to every single event that my boyfriend invites me to because I don't want to disappoint him. And I need to make sure I get to go to the gym today. I need to make sure that I work on my business at least 6 hours today. And I'm so stressed and I'm not sleeping, but I might as well just keep doing it because I don't know how to do anything else. When our mind gets into that pattern, you can only imagine what happens through the body. And since we're not treating ourselves first, since we're not getting past that one thought of I'll never be enough, we're in expectation, we're in protect, that signals the kidneys to produce more cortisol, more testosterone, more adrenaline, keeps the estrogen suppressed, causes problems in the stomach because we're acidic, blocks the thyroid because we're not accessing our true voice, and hurts our pineal because we're not seeing our life clearly. Do you see what I mean? This circle of what happens, this vicious cycle of what we're doing to our own bodies because of just believing this one sentence. And this all ties into us as women becoming more visible in our business, because how on earth could you possibly be in front of a camera or on a stage or wherever it is, speaking in a hall like this one, if we have all of these coats of amber on us where we don't even really know what the true voice is? So to wrap up, I want to give you one exercise that we can do right now, and the answer is going to come to you instantly, I promise, to help you think of this true voice. And I want you to imagine that you're on a plane. You're on a private plane. You're sitting in the seat, and I just want you to observe what your hair is like. Is it up or down? Is it fancy or casual? How's your makeup? Look in a mirror really quick. Do you got some red lipstick on like I do? Or is it pink? Do you have eyeliner on or not? Are you in a dress? Are you in slacks? Are you in jeans? And how are your shoes? And then I want you to look to your right where the aisle is in the plane and see, do you have your purse or your briefcase? What are you carrying with you? If you're anything like me, it's gonna be a huge bottle of water. And then when you step off of the private plane, you are at a huge summit or conference. And as you're walking towards the doors, I want you to, again, imagine, what are you carrying? What do you look like? And what are you doing there? Are you going just to listen? Maybe attending a lecture? Are you speaking? Or maybe you're hosting the event. And if you're hosting or you're speaking, or even if you're attending, what is it about? And what's interesting is that every woman that I take through this exercise instantly knows. They don't need time to think about it. They just instantly know what they're there for and what they're doing. Most are speakers, and most have their topic like that. And I find that really fascinating, because we have that truth and hold on to that thought of who you are at that conference. But anytime that I also take women through the exercise of talking about their 3 biggest fears and their 3 biggest truths, I never cue them. I never say, these are my truths or whatever. They can hammer out their fears so quickly because we all believe that one voice, right? I'm not enough. So they can rattle those off like crazy. But then they switch gears when they have to talk about their truths, and they rattle those off just as quickly. And how does that make sense? If we're truly operating in this protect mode, and this is who we are, and this is who we're supposed to be in this automatic failure, protect mode, acidic body kind of state, if that's how we're supposed to be, then how is it so easy that you're picturing yourself at this successful event talking about this topic so clearly and able to throw out your absolute truths just as easily? And the only answer to that is that you do have that inner truth, and that inner truth has nothing to do with that stupid lie that we believed when we were young. So as we step forward as women in this wonderful day and age where we can get on the internet, get on a stage, and exercise these rights of freedom that have never been possible in history, let's think about what has tried to suppress us from truly embracing that new reality. And it all starts with one word, and that is to change. And it's a choice that you can make right now. And I hope that you join me in this amazing future where you do deserve to have these gifts. No one else has had the life experience that you yourself have had. And that means that you're meant to touch at least one other person with that gift, but you cannot do it if you are in dysfunction or dis-ease, which is all wrapped up in believing this lie. So if you can leave today with one thing, I hope that it would be that one word, to change. And when we say change, we're no longer living on that automatic pilot. We've actually woken up. Thank you so much.